by Glacier National Park, our seated strip. And so over down there, we have the Badger Tooth Medicine, and then up here, we have, on the other side of those peaks is Glacier National Park. And then right in between, if you see that kind of open area right over there is East Glacier, and also rise past the mountain pass to get into Blackfeet country. And then right over there, in that open area is also East Glacier, and that's one of the communities in the Blackfeet Nation, and also where I live with my family. And so I live with my family. If you look over here, this is a picture of my family. My partner Wyatt, who was actually who flew in last night to come be with me, and then our 2 kids, and then our 2 dogs as well. We just finished doing a buffalo hike. We just harvested a buffalo a few weeks ago, and so we're working on tanning the hide. We own a tourism and transportation business called Backpackers Ferry. So we work a lot with our CDT backpackers, but we can talk a lot about that afterwards. So a little bit about, I want to give you just a brief explanation of our ancestral territory, just to kind of give you more of an idea of what I'll be talking about, our energies and our long history that we've had with the land. And so Blackfeet Nation, our ancestors inhabited land all the way up to Edmonton, all the way north Saskatchewan River, all the way down to Yellowstone River, near Wyoming area. And so since time immemorial, we've had this whole huge area that we were stewards of for thousands of years, and we were known on the plains for being one of the most fiercest nations. And you're going to hear me say nation quite a bit instead of reservation, because reservation, when we talk about that, it's a very colonizing term. And so we want to begin to say we are a nation, we are our own sovereignty. And so when we were forced, though, to be put into a reservation, we were very strategic, and we fought very, very hard. And so where we are located right now is currently up in this area right here, right alongside those mountains. So alongside those mountains, and so we very much, there was definitely a reason why we wanted to be in our security of our mountains exactly right in that place, and why we fought so hard for that. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today is the creation of our Plains traditional diet study. Another picture over there. Okay, so the majority of the work that I do revolves around creating this traditional Plains diet study. And then with that is providing ancestral education around plants, food sovereignty, medicines, well-being on the land, land tenure. And with the majority of that work, it's me working, and all of us working hand in hand with our elders, with our youth. We're continuously doing activities on the land, whether that's doing cross-country skiing. This other picture is supposed to be all of us playing traditional games. We're playing a traditional game Devil, but it didn't load. Like I said, we work hand in hand with our youth, with our elders, and not only that, so what we try to do is just get more people more comfortable, more confident with the land. And see that first picture that I showed you, that whole open area. See, while we live in our ancestral territory, and while we still have access to our mountains, that there's a huge disconnection because of colonization, because of the park, because of our fences being put in, the railroad, everything. And so what they really try to do is, between that, the Dawes Act, and the Glacier National Park, they all try to rewrite our story. And so we have actually Blackfeet Nation being right up against the park, and actually having that land was, once ours, once definitely huge stewards of. As we have this huge, long, strenuous history with Glacier National Park. See, kind of a short backstory into that history. And so a little over 100 years ago, while our settlers were coming in, while the park people were coming in, they were starting to see the beauty of this land and how much they could prosper off this. And they really wanted that land. However, we weren't going to give it up. We weren't going to give up our creations, our stories, our ceremony. None of that. Those were our pillows, those were our raised shirts and everything. And so what they did is, for time immemorial, we were able to take care of ourselves up until we could no longer feed ourselves. And so the thing that Glacier Park did was the ones that were pretty much watching over us, I guess, the BIA agents and whatnot. What happened in '83 is when all the buffalo were gone, what we had was a starvation winter, in '83 and '84. And between that time, around 600 Blackfeets, Amskapi, Piikani, mainly elders and young ones, passed away from starving. And so they starved us into purchasing that land. And so that's where we see the whole ceded strip, and then behind that is where they took a good chunk of our land. That was a part of our ceremony and story. But so meanwhile, while we feel this disconnection to that part of our land, it has implemented in our community so much in so many ways. I don't have to tell you guys the strenuous history that Native nations have had to deal with. Just know that we are definitely one that had to really go through it. But that disconnection really still holds in people. They still really hold that hurt. And so we have this huge disconnection with the land, with our mountains, with our knowledge, with our plant knowledge, with our ceremonies. And so with that, what we're trying to do is bring hope to that, bring knowledge, get our people back on the land and comfortable with the land, because there is definitely still a huge amount of hope. Backyard is our medicine, it's our connection, it's our strength. And so what we had to think about is, how are we going to make this research, our work, this traditional diet study, this food sovereignty, digestible to our community? Our community is going through survival mode. How are we going to tell a woman, okay, let me back up really quick. So if you are kind of in a very much a survival mode, you can't focus on what's going on in your world around you, beside what is in front of you. And so meanwhile, where climate change and many other things are affecting our land base, we can't get our people to be aware of that unless they are healthy themselves. And so that's one way we had to really think strategically of how we were going to make this digestible. And so we had to use ourselves as guinea pigs. And I thought to myself, well, how did the land save me? How did the land take me out of the chaos that I was living and into this life and in front of you guys right now, today? And so I thought to myself, all the different ways. In 2020, when the COVID was running rampant, this was during the time I was just finishing out my degree, the first person in my family to earn a bachelor's degree. I was struggling with that. So with all of that, I knew that something was still, I was living a life of chaos. See, my mom, she took us off the reservation at a very early age, and she wanted to keep us away from the trauma that she thought was enveloped for us. But the thing about trauma is, no matter how far you run, it will catch up to you. And so that's what happened. My life was chaos, and I decided, kind of in those months for me leading up to 2020, I made a decision and I moved home. See, the thing about it though is, Blackfeet Nation, we have our own sovereignty, and so we closed our borders, no outsiders. And so when I moved home, this meant, everyone was kept to themselves, isolated. But it also mean there was no rentals, there was no housing available. And so good thing, the weather was super nice, because me and my partner, we set up a lodge, a teepee, we set up campsites, we camped everywhere around the area. And while this may seem kind of unorthodox, it was a saving grace to myself and my partner as well, and our family, as in this time that we had with the whole nation closed off, we had this time to really absorb the place. It was so quiet. Could you imagine yourself in the mountains completely by yourself in the summer with no tourists? It was just completely yourself in the land. And so in this time, I began searching to be able to finally heal myself. And I knocked on many elders' doors searching for stories. I went onto the land, we slept, we ceremonied, we moved on the land. I began harvesting again. Our berries, our saskatoon, what you heard today was blueberries. What we have up north is, we call them saskatoon, savis, or oakanoks. And then not only that, our choke cherries, our roots, everything. And so I was taking this time to myself to really heal, getting my hands in the soil, picking those berries. And in there, it really felt like energy was coming through my fingertips all the way through my body. It was like a nervous system being dormant and being awoken by just having my hands in the soil. And so that feeling I really wanted to bring, that kind of gave me this, like this aha moment. This aha moment of, okay, if generational trauma, if all that negativity, if all that neglect and horribleness has happened to us and seeped through us, through epidemiology, through our cells, and it has manifested into many of the chronic diseases and mental health issues and suicide, all of these different horrible things, then too can thousands of years of positivity, of ceremony, of love, of song, of all of that knowledge too can be passed through your bones, through your cells, through your cell memory. And that's when that hit me. And that's when I started to begin to heal. And so that's when this diet study needed to really become something. And so I'm going to talk to you now about what is our diet study? What is the diet study? So our traditional Plains Blackfeet diet study is one that's been built for the last 5 or so years. That's been in the process of making. So our community members within Blackfeet Nation will take on this diet study for 100 days for around 14 weeks, where they will take on a full traditional diet that has been provided to them. Me and my partner actually worked on harvesting the berries, the roots, the greens, the teas. We have an elk, we have buffalo meat. So that's all the things I've been harvested and been working on for the last few years. And so all of our participants will take on this diet. Not only that, they'll be working hand in hand with knowledge holders. They'll be on the land learning how to harvest themselves, how to learn the protocol of these plants, the phenology, the stories, the songs behind all of these different teachings. And then along with that, they'll be able to learn how to utilize, how to use these plant medicines, how to use them in their own home, how to do all of this, and how to really gain that confidence. And so how are we going to track that journey? And so using our sciencey brains, and that's one thing I didn't actually talk about is within our science, within the methodologies we use, is our own methodologies, Blackfeet ways of knowing and being. I didn't get to describe that picture that was up front, and it gave a little short bit about our own methodologies. And so yesterday we heard the presentation of Monakai, a beautiful, beautiful example of their own traditions and how they use that in their work. Well, just like that, we do that in Blackfeet country within our research, but using our own Blackfeet ideology within our community and our community members. Sorry, I'm all here trying to talk fast and raise the time, like so much to tell you guys. No, but so the quantitative side of our diet study is that we've been doing 3 biosamples with our participants, and so we'll be tracking their A1C, their glucose, their cholesterol, lipids, a full A1C profile, our omega-3 versus omega-6s, our IgG, IgM, IgA, our cortisol levels, all of this, and testing it before in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, as well as we'll be using a qualitative survey to track the non-physiological changes of what our participants are going through, and if this diet study is healing them and healing those things. And see, what we do from this diet study is we want to understand the impacts this can bring to our community as far as chronic diseases and mental health issues and reconnecting themselves. So we wanted to understand is, okay, if we really take care of these group of like 10 to 16 participants and really take care of them through this whole process, then them themselves will learn that knowledge, bring it home, and then who knows that can catch on their kids, their family members, their friends, and where will that knowledge then bring it to? And so we hope for a snowball effect to then happen. And so with this, not only will we be able to do that, but also we'll be able to build a model for other Indigenous nations to be able to use this model for themselves and have confidence in their own research, using their own methodologies. And really, we now have a way to track not only generational trauma, but now generational healing. And so the thing about Western science is what we try to make sure that all the benchmark science data, any wellness is very much done in a Blackfeet way, knowing the theme, is that we try to separate ourselves completely from Western science most of the time. So the thing about Western science is they believe that humans are superior to the natural world, while Indigenous methodologies believe that we're in relationship with everything around us. And we have to think in our colonized minds that, when we go outside, we have to don't think that those trees, those grasses, those rocks, those bugs out there don't have a conscious energy or energy being, but they do. And that's one thing that we want our people to start to understand and get out of that colonized mindset. And so the thing goes with our food. And so we like to practice mindfulness and try to think about where does our food come from. And so being in a food desert, or I heard yesterday someone talk about a food desert and how plentiful and rich it is. Well, I guess it definitely is in the Western term of food desert. We definitely have many processed foods that are very much thrown into within our community. And so we don't have fresh foods and organic foods that are coming into our community. And with this, we're constantly eating these low energized foods. And so if you're thinking about opening a bag of chips or eating a hamburger, you're often eating it and you're feeling not really that great afterwards. And so you think about, where does that food come from? Where does that grain come from? And if you think about it, we can trace it all the way down to some field that keeps getting cultivated, that keeps getting messed with over and over again, and that soil is not getting re-energized. And so if that soil is not getting re-energized, and let's say the animals that are going to slaughterhouses, to these farms are living stuck together, and then they're being killed and then processed for our consumption. When we're eating those foods, we're not only eating those low vibrational foods that are coming from this low vibrational non-energy soil, we're also eating these animals that before they die, they're feeling that anxiety, they're feeling something's off. And so we're wondering when we're digesting and we're going on about our days is that isolating feeling of why do I have so much anxiety? Why do I have so much depression, sadness, irritability? Why does everything annoy me? But we don't look at what we're feeding ourselves and feeding our bodies. And see, the thing we have is the gut brain. And one thing is our vagus nerve that sends transmitters from the brain or from the gut to the brain. And with this, so if we're digesting those low vibrational foods and anxiety full of foods, then we're sending these signals to our brain, and our brain is misinterpreting these signals. And so what I like to call this energy is a vampire. And the thing about the vampire is, what does a vampire do? It sticks its teeth in you, it distorts it, or the toxins get all through your body, and it makes us sick. And a vampire would. Well, I have to think of our processed foods as vampires. We keep eating them. They're making us sick. They're making us irritable. They're making us have full of anxiety, and we're wondering why we're feeling this way. And so with this, like I was saying before, we think of everything as energy. And so if this vampire is a source of energy of like an ill relative, we need to think of it as like a sick relative. And what do we do for sick relatives? We take care of them. We nourish them. We love them and bring them back to health. And so that's what we're trying to do with this diet study and many of the other research things that we're doing is trying to bring this health and take care of that sick vampire. So meanwhile, while all this may be rampant within our community, within maybe your guys' tribal communities, or definitely, there is definitely ways that we can calm this sick relative, we can take care of the sick relative, and bring health and wellness back to our people. Thank you.